For as long as I can remember, I couldn't consider myself an artist. I just saw myself kind of as a potential artist or an artist in training. I was going to school to study art, and I was making pieces of art and thinking about art constantly. But for myself, I just hadn't achieved that status. And really, looking back, I can see maybe why I thought that. I definitely felt underdeveloped and like I didn't have direction with my art. I would think of image I wanted to create, object I wanted to create, or an environment I wanted to explore, and I would just create work off of whimsical ideas that I would just think of. And I was taking each individual idea seriously, but I was kind of lacking my own central line of thought as an artist, a constant that I feel you need to truly master your own work and understand it. The real satisfaction for me came when I finally found a thread in my work, and a lot of things contributed to that, but I think what came first for me was finding the material. I could paint well, I could draw realistically, and I could master painting if I wanted to. If that was my conviction, I could really do anything I wanted, but there's an entire history of painting that you have to contend with. That didn't appeal to me very much, so I finally came to a point where I was ready for a new material, and that's kind of when my central themes started coming into play. I had made enough work at this point where I could see that I was gravitating towards extremely personal subject matter in my own art, and I just had this tendency that if it wasn't intensely personal, and if it wasn't something I was thinking about constantly on a daily basis, then I probably wasn't going to make work about it. And it was such a beautiful revelation for me to finally find that thread. And it converged with my love for fishing line or monofilament. And I can see where they came together. I was diagnosed with premature ovarian failure, which basically means that my body wasn't capable of fully maturing the eggs in my ovaries, basically rendering them useless, just underdeveloped and incapable of being fertilized. So that was pretty devastating for me, actually. I wasn't really thinking about having children, but I really saw having children as a privilege of being a woman, something that is kind of promised to you, and it's just snatched away at the age of 21. And it felt extremely unfair to have to think about that at a time when I just learning to take care of myself and wanting to wait to concern myself with matters of family and a role like motherhood. But it's a role that I knew I wanted and was very important to me because of my own relationship with my mother and my role as a daughter. Because I have such a strong bond with my mother, I really wanted to be that anchor for somebody else. And it came time to make work for a critique, and I knew there was nothing else I could make work about. It just didn't make sense to pull something out of nowhere that didn't mean anything to me when I was coping with an entire change in my perceived identity of myself and my future identity. So it became very important for me to complete this work, and that's really when the monofilament became so volatile. It is such a difficult material because it doesn't like to be controlled at all, and to manipulate it in a way that's contrary to its nature is a difficult task, and I find that that's precisely why I chose it. It just isn't fitting with the content of my work to have a medium that is fluid and comes easily. It makes a lot more sense for me to struggle through the process of my work. My art naturally kind of morphed into a coping mechanism, and that really made crocheting monofilament a natural process for the work I was making, because the best part about my work is the process and taking time to think about and digest whatever it is I'm being troubled about at the time, and doing everything I can to understand it in physical space. Because no matter how many times you turn a thought over in your head, there's only so far you can get. And there's just something about creating something that exists, that's tangible, you could touch, that represent that very struggle, and it's not hurtful to see because it represents the coping of that struggle. And just because the piece is finished doesn't mean I'm done thinking about it or done coping with it, but there's just something about creating work about struggle, completing it, putting it out in real space for everybody to see, critique, and consider, that truly validates what I do and why I do it. Even though I couldn't create a perfect form because the material fights with me so much, I can only control so much and guarantee myself so much. My own efforts and refusal to give up or become frustrated to the point where I needed to quit really shines through, even in the imperfections of the form. It represents those moments in myself when I just can't seem to get past whatever it is I'm struggling through. I feel like monofilament really provided me with a starting point and really gave me a lot of confidence in my own work, that I could make context and meaning coincide with the material I was using and the process in which I was using it. Makes me feel like I could really do anything with my art and do it for as long as I need or want to. And for that, I'm grateful.